Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Gretchen Fix. I'm the Global Head of Marketing for UBQ Materials, and we're so excited to welcome you to our webinar, where we'll be talking about solving the oil-based plastic crisis with our innovative material. To get things started, I just want to let everyone know that we'll be starting with a brief presentation by our Chairman and CEO, Albert Dewar. Then we'll move on and pull open the curtain to our live plant, where you'll get to see UBQ being made live in our facility in Bergen op Zoom in the Netherlands. Then we'll end with a Q&A with Albert, where we'll answer the questions that you provide to us. So the best way to give us your questions is to just add comments to the feed, and we'll answer those at the end of our session. So with that, I'm honored to bring Albert Dewar to the stage to present today and to talk about how we can solve the oil-based plastic crisis. So welcome, Albert.
Thank you, Gretchen, and welcome everyone. Before we get started, I just want to tell you a little bit of why we're doing a live. In today's world, unfortunately, people do a lot of talking, and it's become very, very difficult to be able to tell what's real from what isn't. And particularly with what we're doing at UBQ, solving some problems that people have been trying to solve for even thousands of years, I would say, we wanted it to be as real as possible. There are no special presenters here. There's no professionals. The person who will be giving you the tour, Fabian, is our plant manager and engineer. No makeup. Things may go wrong. It doesn't really matter because we want you to get the feel for the reality of UBQ and for the reality of the solution that we provide. That's why we're doing a live session rather than a fancy marketing video, which is what everybody tends to do when they really have very little to tell. So with that, let's get started. And I hope that you will realize by the end of this presentation that UBQ is really something wonderful and that it's something that is here today, not something for the future. So what is UBQ? Basically, we're the world's first alternative to oil-based plastic made entirely from mixed household waste, including the organics. And I'm going to be showing you a couple of things that, for those of you that haven't had so much contact with UBQ, will amaze you, because basically we're able to do things that until now had been impossible for us. So what is the impact that UBQ can have? And this is one of the reasons that we're doing a live, okay? Because what I'm about to tell you is all 100% true, and it's, like I say, available today, okay? First of all, we're all living through a very volatile world, or living in a very volatile world where pricing and raw material availability has become very crazy. It's not the first time that it's happened. We just lived through something like this during COVID, so it seems to be something that is a recurring issue. UBQ can offer lower and stable pricing because we don't depend on oil. That means that UBQ can literally come up and replace plastics at a lower price than what plastics are made of. And not only that, we could guarantee a price for 2 or 3 years, something that, as you well know, all you have to do is go to the gas pump, and you know that no one will give you a guarantee on anything based on oil for even more than a day these days. So UBQ solves one of the big issues that we have, which is volatility and high pricing. The second thing is, for those of us that really care about our planet, UBQ can literally end landfills and incineration, okay? If you think about it, mankind has basically been doing the same thing with its waste, not for the last 100 years, for the last 10,000 years. We do one of two things. Either we dump it somewhere where hopefully we won't have to walk by, okay? Usually it means at our neighbor's house, okay? Or we burn it, okay? And that's what we've been doing. So today, if you go to Europe or Japan, they burn the waste. If you go to the US or Latin America, it tends to go into a big hole. Either way, we're always doing damage to the planet and to our own neighborhoods, our own cities, the places where we live. The third thing is that we obviously reduce plastic use, because that's one of the things that we do. We replace plastics. I will also show you some really nice new things that we're doing, because we're going to be able to replace wood as well. But the important thing is that with UBQ, rather than keep digging holes to make the things that we need, in other words, digging holes to get the raw materials that we need or cutting down trees, with UBQ, we literally use the same waste that we generated. So instead of a landfill, instead of burning it, we're actually going to be making all kinds of products, from auto parts to household goods. And then finally, for those of you that are concerned with emissions, or those of us that are, UBQ will greatly reduce carbon emissions and methane emissions at the same time. So really, it's a wonderful product. Sounds a little bit too good to be true. That's precisely why I said we're doing a live. We want you to see that this is something that is not a dream. It's something that we can implement, not even tomorrow, this afternoon. This is probably one of the most important slides I'm going to show you today, because all of us have a chip in our head. And when we talk about waste, for some reason, we're always thinking about the hard to recycle plastics. Okay. I don't know why. I like to joke around that if you ask somebody on the street, what percentage of waste is plastic? They'll tell you 300%. You know, we've sort of gotten it ingrained that plastics are all of our waste. But the truth of it is that most of our waste is actually the things to the left of the plastics. It's actually food waste, dirty paper and cardboard, and a lot of clothing and textiles as well. And if we don't solve all of those, in the end, we cannot solve the issue of landfills or incineration. The difference between UBQ and everything else that anyone has ever talked to you about is that we use, this is super important, we use 100% of what you're seeing on this slide. So 100% of the food waste, 100% of the paper and cardboard, 100% of the textiles, and 100% of all the mixed plastics will get used to make UBQ. We're not picking and choosing things like you have to do in the recycling world. And what's the other thing that you need to think about? And this is where I hope that I will change your chip. When we talk about UBQ then, because of this slide that I'm showing you, we're talking about a material that literally is made from chicken bones, vegetables, fruit, meat, the dirty paper and cardboard that it came in, and all of those plastics that we need to live in the modern world. Those plastics that allow us to transport food from one end of the country to the other, that allow us to have cheaper things. All of those mixed plastics will get used in UBQ. So this is really the big chip change that I need from all of you, because we're not talking about recycling. We're not talking about just using plastic waste. We're talking about using all of it. And the beauty of it is we can take it all mixed. We're not asking you to become a professional at figuring out exactly what bin everything goes into. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be recycling. Of course we should. If we can recycle and we can do it economically, we should still be doing it, because that will be a better use of the material. But in the end, and this is why we came up with this phrase that I love to use, UBQ is literally made from the garbage of the garbage. No one else will tell you that. We take the material that no one else wanted. 100% of the material that we use would have either ended up in a landfill or would have ended up incinerated. We do not use materials that could have been used in a better way. So this literally solves the landfill and incineration problem, which is why I say with UBQ, we can see the end of the tunnel. We can see a world where landfills and incineration are no longer necessary. What's the solution? How do we do the magic? Fabian is going to walk you through the plant, but literally what we do, like I told you, is we take the garbage of the garbage. Now, we do need to take two things out. I have to tell you that we're not perfect. We have to take all the metals and we have to take all the minerals, things like glass, out, because they're abrasive. And equipment, particularly injection molding and extrusion equipment in the manufacturing world, they don't like those materials. So we have to take them out. Those are the only two things that we take out. Everything else is used, like I told you, everything that you saw in the previous slide, 100% of it is used to make this material that is like little balls or little pellets of UBQ material. The beauty of that UBQ material is that it is not a polymer. Sorry to get a little bit technical. Plastics are actually, the technical word for them is a polymer. We're not that, but we do have the same characteristics of plastic. In other words, when you heat it up, it melts, and when it's in molten form, it flows. What does that mean? It means that we can use existing plastic equipment in order to process UBQ. What this allows us is literally, like I told you a few minutes ago, we can literally start using UBQ this afternoon. We don't have to redo our factories. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We don't have to redesign the products. Not today. Hopefully in the future, people will do it so they can use more and more UBQ, but anybody can get started tomorrow morning or even this afternoon with UBQ. So this is the solution. We go from the garbage of the garbage, the stuff that no one wants, and instead of putting it in landfill or incineration, we turn it into something that replaces plastics. So literally, we're solving two of the biggest problems in the world today, which is obviously garbage in general and the waste generated by these unrecyclable plastics that last forever. A lot of words here, okay? But this really shows you the beauty of UBQ versus our traditional plastics. And I would almost call it the UBQ world versus the traditional world, because it's not just plastics, wood, a lot of other things have the same problems that plastics do. First of all, what's the difference between UBQ and traditional plastics? I already spoke to one of them. We can give stable pricing, and we will always be cost competitive with oil-based plastics. In other words, the consumer will never have to pay extra in order to use products made with UBQ. This is one of the beautiful things. We're not asking the consumer to have to, give up something in their world, give up maybe a child's food tonight. In the case, I'm originally from Colombia, not a very rich country, and I know that some people can't afford to be sustainable. UBQ makes it affordable for everybody. We're bio-based. Okay, again, 80% of what we use, you saw it on that slide that I showed you. 80% of our waste is actually that food waste, dirty paper and cardboard, and the organic textiles. Plastics are oil-based with all the problems that we know that is causing. Again, we're made from waste, they're made from oil. We're climate positive. That's something incredible. Until now, whenever we make a material or we use a material, by definition, we have to emit carbon. UBQ not only prevents the emission of that carbon, avoids emission of carbon, but it also avoids emissions of gases like methane, which have a far greater greenhouse effect than carbon itself does. What's the end result of all of this? UBQ is actually an incredible protector of nature. Okay, you no longer need landfills. You're not emitting carbon and methane. You're not having to drill or cut down things in order to make the products that we need. We are really an incredible protector of nature. We obviously reduce pollution because things end up being used for our products rather than in the atmosphere or in our water or somewhere else. And then finally, another one that is an incredible one because it's become very, very important. I don't know if you realize it, but almost every raw material that we use, almost every process that we use today in manufacturing requires a lot of water. Particularly, like I say, recycling requires a lot of water. UBQ uses zero operational water. That's another incredible thing about UBQ. In other words, we're able to do everything that you're going to see without having to use water resources either. So really, when you compare us to the traditional plastics, to the traditional world, this is almost what, in Americans call a no-brainer. Why aren't we doing much more of this? Which is the big question and is why we're here today, because our message is we need the entire world to understand that we can stop talking about the problem, we can stop complaining about the problem, and we can actually start doing something about it at zero cost to the consumer, which is very important. Now, we're already working with a lot of interesting brands, okay? These are really good companies, all of them, incredible companies. You've probably heard of some of them. I imagine Mercedes is one that almost everybody knows. Well, it turns out there's cars out there on the road already using parts that have UBQ inside. So imagine UBQ can actually be used in a Mercedes car. that tells you that it can be used in hundreds and hundreds of other applications as well. You can just imagine the amount of due diligence, the amount of testing, et cetera, that Mercedes did in order to accept UBQ as a standard raw material for one of their parts. And again, people like Pepsi are using it in logistics products. You've probably not heard of people like Suprema. They're a roofing manufacturer in Europe. So some of you in other parts of the world may have not heard of them, but they also have been using it in roofing. So a lot of different applications that we're going to go into them a lot. More important than the names that are here, there's companies like Action, a huge retailer in Europe, 4,800 stores. They've also rolled it out with several different products that they buy. They've rolled it out across their 4,800 stores. To me, the big question on this slide is not so much the great companies that are on it, it's where are all the other missing companies that I do know about? Where is IKEA? They talk about plastic reduction all day. They talk about carbon reduction. Why aren't they here? Home Depot, Target, Walmart. Why aren't they here? That is the big question, and I think I have the answer for it. The answer is too many people don't realize that there's a real solution out there that already works and that they could be implementing today. And one of the big asks that I have from everyone who's listening to me today is precisely that. Whether you're an executive in a company, whether you work in a company, and most important, as a consumer, you can go tell the world, you can go tell the people that you buy things from, we want UBQ in our products. Why are you still using plastic for durables and semi-durable products when you could be using UBQ? Why aren't you doing something that would cost you nothing, but at the same time would benefit not only my generation, but generations to come? So really what we would like, and my big ask is that I hope that when we look at this slide a year from now, there's going to be so many names on it that we can barely put all those names on this slide. Now, what can we do with UBQ? This is the exciting part. And I think that this slide shows you the boundless possibilities with UBQ, okay? Every single one of these pictures is real products that have some percentage of UBQ inside, okay? They're not necessarily 100% UBQ, but we have replaced the original material partially, or in some cases totally, with UBQ. So everything, look at all those consumer durables. And you can imagine dozens of things that you buy every day that could have been made with UBQ. These are just the things that we're showing you on these pictures. But if you see those storage bins, you probably can think of a dozen other products that could be using UBQ. In supply chain, tons of things, pallets, point of purchase displays, bins, crates. How many crates don't you see? If you've ever been in a warehouse today, crates have become a standard way of automating warehouses. There's millions and millions of crates every day. Automotive, we spoke about it all day. And then, of course, building and construction. Building and construction, as you well know, building things, agriculture and construction are the two biggest predators of the planet. We need to all the time be extracting things from the planet, ruining things in the planet in order to generate our food and to generate the roof over our head. UBQ can replace a lot of those extracted materials with the waste that I showed you at the beginning. So flooring, fencing, roofing, decking. And I want to show you something that most people have not seen because it's brand new. This is something that we developed on our own. Look at this. This is your desk probably. Looks just like your desk. Might look like your countertop in your kitchen. So many things look like this. Well, look at this. This is 90% UBQ. Okay? So imagine, we're no longer talking about just making a planter, making a chair, making an auto part. We're talking about literally being able to make walls, entire roofs, making all the furniture that we need. All of these bookcases that you're seeing around me, they could all be made with UBQ. So the message that I have on this slide is the possibilities are endless. Now, we're not good for everything. I'm not telling you that this is the perfect product. We're not food, we're not rated for direct food contact, So this is not going to solve the one-time use products, but we are a solution for their end of life, because as you can see, rather than ending up in a landfill, we can use them to make all of these products. So we don't solve everything, but we do solve a lot. And by the way, we generate so much waste, and we build so much, and we consume so much, that we're talking about not about hundreds of thousands of tons, we're talking about millions and maybe even billions of tons that could be used, produced with waste and with UBQ particularly, rather than with plastics or anything else. And again, I hope that very soon, just going to give you another little tidbit, very soon you will be seeing hangers. This is one of the industries that has really moved along quickly, has been the clothing industry, particularly the retail clothing industry. We're working now with some of the largest brands in the world, and I hope that you will begin to see hangers in some of the stores that you visit, for sure, because they're all over the world, that have UBQ inside. So, maybe we can't recycle, or they are not being able to recycle all of their clothing waste, but some of that clothing waste will be used to make hangers. So a lot of different things that we can do with UBQ. The possibilities are literally almost endless. It's a question of us moving quickly toward that world. And now, of course, you're all here because you want to see UBQ. Like I said, we could have made a fancy video. We're not doing that. We want you to see it with all our flaws, with all our nice things, and maybe I hope the Wi-Fi and everything is going to work out okay, because it is a live presentation, and I'm going to hand it over to Fabian and to Gretchen so that you can continue on with your tour, and I'll be back with you at the end for your questions.
Thank you so much, Albert. That was really great, and we'll come back to you. Thanks, everyone, and I'm really excited to get to the point that we've all been waiting for. So I'm going to introduce you to Fabian. Hi, Fabian.
Hello, Gretchen.
Hello. And I'm going to hand you over to start the tour.
All right. Thank you, Gretchen. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to our site in the Netherlands. We are now in our takeover hall. This is the hall where we accept the waste. If you see next to me, this is literally the waste we produce at home. This is household waste. You see a lot of brown stuff. This is the majority of the organics. You also see glass, you see metals, you see stones, you see ceramics, you see aluminum. All of this will go into our process. The majority of this, the organics and the plastics, is what we want. The other ones we will take out. Behind me, you see the crane taking the waste from the piles. It will move it in the moving floor where the process starts. From there it will go up. The cages you see are the first magnetic screening. That is where we take out the big metal parts. And if you go to the right, you see a shredder. We want a specific size for our process, so everything that is oversized will go to the shredder. So the takeover hall is the first part of the process that I will be explaining today. Now we will go to the P1 hall, where the majority of the sorting happens. Okay, so now we are in the P1 process. This is where all the sorting happens. First thing you will see here is to my right, which is the dryer. When the waste comes in, it is quite wet. So the first thing we do is dry. When it is too wet, some of the rejects, some of the things we want to take out will stick to the other ones. That's the majority of the reason for the drying. The heat of the drying, it does not come from oil or gas or external heat. It comes from recovering the energy from our own processes. So we recover our own heat and use it to dry our own waste. After that, it goes to the machine behind me. It's the flip-flop screen. That's a big screening system with 4 levels. That will separate the waste into 4 fractions. These 4 fractions will help us to separate it further. When you see these fractions, they will all go down and move to the middle of the plant. There we have the next step of magnetic sorting. This magnetic step is very difficult to see from here because we have a lot of belts and piping to transport all of this waste. Next step is the destoning. That's where we are walking to down. So behind me, you see all of the destoners for one line. Typically, if you go to a waste plant, you will see 4 of them for a much bigger quantity. We have 24 for 120 tons on this plant. We will go past it. So these destoning cables, they are very loud. So they are not on purpose, or you would never understand it. But these tables, they will shake. And airflow will come from the bottom. Because of that, the light fraction, which is the plastics, contaminated plastics, and the organic fraction, will start floating. Vibration of the table will vibrate the heavies upwards. So on this side, the lower end, you have all the good fraction, which is again the light fraction, the plastics, and the organics. And if you walk to the other side, you'll see the heavies. This is what we take out. You see some lips from cans, you see some heavy plastics, here you see some glass, here you see some metal coated, plastic coated metal. This is where we take out those batteries. So up until now, we've taken out the big metal parts, then the small metal parts. Now we take out all the heavies, which is the glass, which is the ceramics and the stones. Then the thing left is the non-magnetic metals and the technical plastics. Some of the plastics in the waste we like to separate. That is what we do in our last machine. This is the NIR, stands for near infrared. And we have 2 technologies combined, which will screen all the waste that comes over this belt. For each line we have 3 of them, so not only this one, we have 2 that control the main stream of all of the waste, and 1 that controls all the reject of that. And that's to increase our efficiency. Here you have a magnetic field sensor that will try to sense the non-ferrous metals, typically like aluminium. This one will try to find all the technical plastics. Good example is PVC or PET. These 2 combined will direct 1,000 nozzles in here, and these nozzles with pneumatic air, they will shoot out the things we do not want in the final plant. After we have done this, our waste is theoretically clean enough. We call it ready to work, and we store it in some big bunkers we have over there. So during the entire process, during all these different steps, we learn the composition of the waste. By knowing the composition, we will put it in one of the 6 giant bunkers behind me. For the conversion process, we need to mix these waste streams in a certain composition we like. So after this, it goes to P2 with that certain mixture. We will not show P2 today, because that is our process we like to pursue. We like to protect it. This is the final product after Q2. This is the typical tablet we make. I think a lot of people from the plastics industry know this kind of tablet. And it's up to you or it's up to every customer to make something nice with it. This is the hanger that Albert mentioned. We have some flower pots. We have a pen holder. A piece of flooring, that's also possible. Also the board, that also Albert showed. This is the plant tool that I wanted to show to you today. Thank you, Gretchen. Thank you, Albert, and back to you.
Thank you so much, Fabian. That was really great. Well, thank you, everyone. As you can see, that was a working plant. It was a little loud at times, so hopefully you could hear, but we're really excited to have been able to show that to all of you and for you to experience it. Albert, welcome back to the stage. We have a few closing comments, and then we'll move on to questions.
Yes, so I hope that you got a feel for the plant. Obviously, we didn't have the time, or we weren't even sure how well this was going to work out. But I think you got the feel for the size of it. It's a very large plant, over 650,000 square feet, 65,000 meters. You saw that it has, almost it's 4 stories high. We really have done something, invested hundreds of millions of dollars in euros. And it's something, like I said before, that is here today. Hopefully in the future, we'll be able to do some more lives where we can show you more of the plant. And I always welcome people to come by the plant or to organize tours of the plant, which is something that we love to do. Obviously, it's a little bit hard to take the plant all over the world, which is why we're doing this. So just coming back, and I want to get to the questions quickly. So I just want to remind you, there's a lot of things on this slide. These slides will be available for everyone. But basically, with UBQ, now let's look at it from a business point of view. Again, we have a material that will save companies money, where you will be able to have stable pricing through not a month or 2 months, but for years. We reduce or completely eliminate, depending on the product that you're making, the use of oil-based plastics. We reduce carbon footprint and landfill waste, as you could tell. And getting a little bit technical on the regulatory side, in Europe and Latin America, even in the US in the construction side, we see more and more regulation kicking in, and UBQ is a really easy and cost-effective way of meeting all of that regulation. So UBQ really brings a lot to everyone. It brings a lot to companies, and here we're showing you there's a lot of positive business impact. You can make more money, be more competitive, have better marketing stories for your customers. So great business opportunity for the consumer. You can feel good, do good, and it should not cost you extra. It's only a question of the same people that you're buying things from beginning to use UBQ. So the consumer is an enormous beneficiary of what UBQ is doing. And then most of all, which by the way is why I'm here, it's why people like Fabian, like Gretchen came to work for this company. We all had really nice lives, really comfortable jobs. We are all in UBQ for one particular reason, which is, I know it sounds corny, too many people use it, but as you can tell, we actually walk it, we don't talk it, which is we want to make a better world for our children. In my case, I already have 6 grandchildren, so I want to make a better world for them and all of the grandchildren that are coming to this world, for everyone's grandchildren. And that's why we did what we did. But again, I want to remind you that we don't just talk, we're actually doing things. And the big message today is, I hope that by seeing the plant in real life, you're able to tell that this is not a dream. It's not about what we can do in the future. It's about what we can do, like I said, this afternoon. And with that, Gretchen, if you want to go ahead and give me some of the questions that people have posted.
Sounds good. Thank you, Albert. So we do have a bunch, and we'll get through as many as possible. So I'll start with the first one. It's a 2-parter. What is the minimum feed from the waste stream to be commercial?
So the interesting thing about UBQ is we actually started out. We haven't talked about this, but we're our technology is originally Israeli technology, and we literally built a plant there, and we started from a garbage truck. Okay, so we're able to literally go from a garbage truck to what you saw at the plant in Holland. Okay, which is our big commercial plant. That's where we took a little bit of a dream and turned it into something real. Was in Holland, which, by the way, is a great place, and in many ways, even though I can't speak a word of it, I feel Dutch already, and I think a lot of us do. So, to the question, we literally are able to, if we take household waste, normally we can use about. I don't like to go all the way up to 98%, but I'll tell you that 95 is usually where we can get to. And most of what we lose, by the way, is the humidity in the waste. I don't know if you realize it, but waste is full of water, and that's what we take out.
Great, thank you. The second part of that question is, what is the temperature range of the finished product?
So UBQ, when it's in its, once it's manufactured, actually still has a lot of organic content. So what limits our temperature range is actually that organic content. So normally we need to work somewhere below 200 degrees C, which means that it's completely compatible with many of the plastics, commodity plastics that exist today, with polypropylene, polyethylene, polystyrene, and PVC. You can easily mix UBQ into any of these, or like I showed you with the boards, there are products that you can make with 100% UBQ. So it's only a question of what you're processing and how you're processing it.
Great. Next question is, why is UBQ considered immune to oil price fluctuations?
Because we only have one important input, and it's called your garbage. The garbage of the garbage, like I said. Therefore, we don't depend on what's happening with oil. We're completely delinked from it. Most of the waste that we get is very close by the plant as well. So even things like the cost of gasoline or petrol do not affect us either. And that's why we can give you a price that is good for 3 years, because waste actually rarely goes up in price. Okay, yeah. So.
Right. Next question is UBQ recyclable or compostable?
Okay, so this is a super important question. You guys probably don't know a lot about me, but I'm actually one of the people that started recycling. I started recycling PET bottles over 2 decades ago. I was one of the first people that started taking PET bottles and turning them back into food packaging. And what I learned there was how difficult recycling is and how easy it is to mess up recycling. And therefore, we have been extremely careful at UBQ to make sure that, number one, UBQ is 100% recyclable. Not only that, if you recycle us carefully, which means if you don't overheat it, you will be able to recycle pure UBQ many more times than you could recycle plastics. So plastics normally by the second or third go around, they're very hard to recycle. UBQ can be recycled. We have an outside study that says we can be recycled 5 times without losing properties. We've actually done it in-house 10 times, okay? So UBQ is very recyclable. We also do not ruin anybody else's recycling stream. So we don't, if something is made primarily of polypropylene, it will continue to work perfectly well in that recycling stream. So again, we've been very careful with all of that. As to compostable, no, we're not compostable. But think about it a different way. Think of all that organic material that you cannot compost. This is something that people forget about composting. Composting is just like plastics. They want it clean. They want 0 plastics in there, 0 metals, all of these things that people don't like and that UBQ can deal with, composting doesn't like. Recycling doesn't like it either. So again, that's why we say we use the garbage of the garbage. Literally, even on the composting area, we have even used the rejects from composting and used it as our input in UBQ. So UBQ, the way that we have to think about it, UBQ literally gives material that would not have had another life. We automatically give it a new life, and that's something we can never forget. We're already resuscitating the dead material. Let's call it that way.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay. Great. Next one, is UBQ material suitable for applications with strict requirements regarding odor and contamination?
Okay, so first of all, let's go to the contamination. We meet all of the important regulation and standards that any manufacturer or consumer would want to ask for. So we're REACH compliant in Europe. We're Prop 65 in the US. RoHS, heavy metals, all of these standards are met by UBQ, okay? Not only do we meet those standards, but just as important is how do we guarantee that those standards are being met day in, day out? And this is something really interesting about UBQ. I told you that we make auto parts for Mercedes, or our material is used for auto parts. Since they were an early adopter of UBQ, in UBQ, we don't use what most of us used to use in our plants, which is ISO 9000 for quality control. We actually use the IATF standard for our quality control in UBQ, which is the auto industry standard, which is much higher. So not only do we meet all of the standards, but on top of that, we also guarantee or have processes in place that guarantee that we will meet those standards.
Okay, thank you. Next one is, what are the technical specification limitations in terms of temperature, strength, et cetera? I know we talked about temperature already, but maybe you can touch on strength.
So look, UBQ is a rigid product. I showed you this thing. Look at this. I mean, okay, that's pure UBQ almost. So it all depends what you're trying to make. Okay, if you're trying to make a flexible product, you can formulate it. That's why you can make a car mat out of UBQ. Okay, you mix it with rubbers and it works very well. So it's very much product dependent. UBQ is naturally rigid, but through formulation we can make it flexible, or our customer can make it flexible. So the range of products, that's why when I showed that slide on the products, the range of products that you can make with UBQ are enormous, but I can't tell you that you need one or another, because it really depends on the formulation that anybody's using. Roofing, for example, is very flexible, these big rolls, and they're using it in roofing. So it all very, very much depends on the manufacturer's formulation and on the manufacturer's equipment.
And the next one is, can UBQ be considered as a polymer filler or just a sustainable additive?
Okay. This is semantics to me. Okay. You can inject, I'll put it to you because obviously it's a technical person asking this question. So I'm going to answer it technically. First of all, very important for everyone to understand, UBQ is a thermoplastic. Okay. That means you can injection mold 100% UBQ. Okay. You cannot injection mold a filler. You cannot injection mold a pure additive. Okay. You need a thermoplastic to be able to do that. UBQ is a thermoplastic. Now, what it ends up being in any given product, again, it depends on the customer's formulation. It depends what they're replacing. That is the beauty of UBQ is that it can actually be used in so many different applications that it can serve different purposes depending on the end product. So if you have a product like, let's say, one of these bins that you buy at IKEA or Home Depot or a household good that is made out of 100% polypropylene, well, you're going to be replacing the plastic, okay? And therefore, the thermoplastic characteristics of UBQ are good. If you're going to be using it in roofing, you might be replacing asphalt or bitumen or maybe a filler that they use. So it all depends on the product that you're trying to make. But very important for everyone, and I'm going to repeat it because it's something that particularly technical people have a hard time getting their head around it, is that UBQ can be 100% UBQ can be injection molded.
Great, thank you. The next question is, since UBQ contains a mix of several types of waste, how do you prevent it from being flagged as a contaminant in recycling?
Well, you saw a little bit of the plant now with Fabian, okay? By the time that we get the material to the end of the plant where he was showing you the products, those bins at the end that he told you that we separated out, we know exactly what we have. Okay, we know exactly what we have, and we can do something wonderful, which sounds crazy to most people, which is we can formulate the waste. So since we know what we have, we can literally take waste from, by the way, very important, we only use household waste. Okay, let's start off with that. Okay, so the waste we're getting, by the way, is pretty good waste. if you think about it, okay? Because what is it that you throw away? Most of the stuff that you throw away, again, it's the food, it's the paper and cardboard. Most of it is stuff that we are known. But even with all of that, our process, that long process that Fabian showed you, where we take out all of these things, guarantees that we know what we have at the end. And again, we meet all of the regulatory standards for all of the countries in the world, because we actually have a very good firm that works on that with us. So it's not that we just meet the standard of the US or the standard of the EU. We meet Japanese standards. We meet everybody's standards. So why can we do it? Because of our processes. That's something that we can guarantee.
Next question is, when companies are choosing materials, how can they evaluate the differences between the different alternatives, like recycled plastics, bioplastics, and then UBQ?
Okay, so I think hopefully you already got a pretty good idea that UBQ complements recycling. Okay? Unfortunately, this is one of the big problems in all of this world of circular economy and sustainability. People have exaggerated the solutions, okay? So people, every single time that there's a problem and they don't know how to solve it, then they turn something into the silver bullet. And recycling was turned into a silver bullet, where people decided that was going to solve all of our waste. Well, we know today, I mean, I knew it 20 years ago, by the way. That's why I got involved with UBQ, because I knew that recycling was not going to be enough. So if you can recycle a material back into the same material in an economic way and the logistics work for you, do it. Okay? We're not competing against that. Okay? So if you can do that, you should do that. By the way, UBQ can be used with recycled material. A lot of our customers use 100%, let's say 70% recycled material with UBQ, or 50% recycled material with UBQ. Okay? So you can do that. Bioplastics are the future to a certain degree, but you have to be very careful, because bioplastics, it all depends where they came from. Many times bioplastics are worse for the environment than oil-based plastics. Why? Because either you have to farm them, or you have to transport them, or you have to do a lot of things that are not so good. So that's one thing you have to be careful about. But the second one, which is the most important in many ways, is that until now, bioplastics have never been able to compete with oil-based plastics. So it's a solution that works very well for the people that live in Beverly Hills, that live in Paris. It's not such a good solution for the people that come from Colombia and live in Chocó, or in the altitudes of Bolivia. Okay, we need products that are competitive, and therefore bioplastics are one area that again, it's the product of the future, perhaps, but it's been the product of the future for the last 30 years. So that's all I can say. And there was a third one that you asked me, Gretchen. You said
it was just recycled plastics, bioplastics, and UBQ.
Okay. Then UBQ, we know why.
Yeah.
I got that one. I did miss it.
Okay. We want to be respectful of everyone's time, so we'll try and rapid fire through some of the rest of these questions so that we get to as many as we can. One is, how is the waste pre-treated to get the dry, dusty, fine material that the tour started with?
Sorry, can you repeat it? I didn't get the last one.
That's okay. How is the waste pre-treated to get the dry, dusty, fine material that the tour started with?
No, because the tour started with a material that was actually going to go to an incinerator. People think that when you incinerate garbage, you just take the garbage truck and dump it somewhere. You can't do that. You have to go through this whole process before you can go incinerate it. What we do is that we get the material that has already been prepared for incineration, and literally, as it's going to its end of life, literally end of life, it's going to get burned, we divert that truck, comes to UBQ, and we start with that. But if we need to, for example, again, if we're in Brazil, we're in the US where there isn't that much burning, no problem. UBQ, what we do is that we have another set of equipment before the ones that we saw today in order to generate that material. That material, by the way, for technical people is called RDF, which, if I'm not wrong, is residue-derived fuel. Again, it's material that would have ended up in incineration.
Great, thank you. And then the next one is, from which area do you collect the waste, specifically at our plant in Bergamasco?
So this is one of the beauties of being in the Netherlands. And you're going to think it's crazy what I'm about to tell you, but most people don't know this. You know that the waste from Rome goes to Amsterdam to get burned. Okay, crazy, right? And they're telling us the problem is solved. I don't call that a solved problem. So literally in the Netherlands, we're able to get waste from, I described, from Italy, from France, from Belgium, from Germany, even from the UK. They barge waste into the Netherlands as well. So we're able to take we're able to pick and choose from any one of these sources and use that waste in UBQ. And again, since we can formulate it, we're able to use everyone's garbage of the garbage.
Great. Next one is, can automobile shredder residue be added to the mix?
It all depends what that is. Okay, if it's plastic, the answer is yes.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Next one is, do you use an extruder to make the granules?
No, we compress it, and then we do though have a master batch family of products. For those of you who are technical, where we take UBQ, we mix it with another material, whether it's plastic or rubber, to make pellets. There we do use extruders.
Okay. Next one is, can UBQ help European packaging producers solve PPWR restrictions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. In fact, it's very funny because that question is being asked, because we literally have received the material that these cooperatives that are in charge of doing all the PP, sorry, I'm bad with the EPR, the extended producer responsibility cooperatives. We literally have received waste that would have ended up at an incinerator, that is basically all these mixed plastics that are dirty, that are mixed, have some contaminants, usually organic, and we're able to use 100% of that material within our process. So we are clearly, when we talk about circular economy, UBQ is circular economy on steroids. We close the circle for all the brands. We close the circle for all the retailers. We close the circle for all the manufacturers. This is something, again, this is why I want to tell all of you again, the more people understand about UBQ, governments, brands, and manufacturers, you will realize that UBQ is the cheapest way to accomplish those goals that particularly Europe and much of the world has.
Yeah. Next one is, do things like microben need to be added in the process, or does the heat from the process kill any bacterial elements?
No, within the process, we don't, but it becomes inert in our process. Anything that is there gets destroyed, but we don't need to add anything.
Next is, do you test the granules in a lab?
Oh, definitely. Not only in our labs, but we send it out, and we're really crazy people, because not only do we send it out to labs in Europe, but sometimes we'll also send it to the US, just to have different labs in a different country analyze it again, because we always want to make sure that our material is what we expect it to be, not just from every point of view, from a processing point of view, from a safety point of view, everything. Testing is a critical part of who we are.
Absolutely. Next one is, could we use some UBQ into blown film extrusion?
Okay, that's one. The answer is technically yes. We have a material that works, but it doesn't work in a way that we feel comfortable rolling it out as a product yet, because it's not consistent. And in the manufacturing world, consistency is critical. By the way, this is one of the problems with recycling. Recycled material is not always consistent. UBQ is exactly the same. When we tell you we ship something in April, the material we ship you in August will be the same, and the one that we ship you next year will be the same. So the answer is yes, you can use it, but since it is not homogeneous like we would like it to be, we have not rolled it out.
Great, thank you. Couple more real quick ones, Albert, if you have it in you.
Sure, yeah.
Do you have experience in using UBQ blended with a natural fiber like WPC compounds?
Okay, people use it in WPC. You can easily use UBQ in a WPC blend. That is not an issue. But UBQ, we have also started experimenting with some really interesting, now non-household type of waste. Like, for example, going specifically to WPC type of application, we're able to use paper sludge, which are the very small fibers left over after paper or cardboard production. We're able to use those in our process as well. So UBQ works on both ends of the story, which is something that is pretty common for UBQ, to work as a solution for waste, and as well as working inside products that use those types of materials.
Great. And I have one more to end it with.
Sure.
What has been the hardest thing to get people to truly understand about UBQ's technology or impact, and how have you had to adjust your storytelling because of that?
Look, that is, I wish I had the straight answer for that one. I'm going to tell you, I'm going to talk from the heart here, okay? I'm not going to give you a standard answer. We always knew that making UBQ was going to be very, very difficult. Okay, the amount of technical problems we had to solve was enormous. Okay, no fund, no investment fund would have ever bankrolled this thing. Okay, this was done with private money because we believed in what we were doing. Okay, and we knew it was going to take years. It took years. Okay, it took over a decade to get the technology correct. What we always thought would be very easy was that everybody would understand the impact, would understand the benefit of UBQ, and that would explode within seconds. Well, it turns out that people, it takes longer for people to make change. And this is why we're doing things like this live. Right now, UBQ is about every single person knowing about UBQ. I have never met a person that I get to talk to on a one-to-one basis the way that we're talking today that doesn't believe in UBQ 2 seconds later. Why? Because, like I said from the beginning, it's a no-brainer. Okay, we replace plastics, we use waste, it's non-oil based, carbon negative, all of these things for free. Okay, now what we need is for the whole world to understand that new world is here. And so the storytelling, yes, has changed. Before it was about being able to do the impossible. We've done the impossible. This is innovation at its peak. Okay, maybe in some ways it's harder than going to the moon because people had already gone to the moon. They're going to go for a second time. No one had ever been able to do what we do. Okay, no one has ever been able to do in the history of mankind what UBQ has done. Now it's a question of the whole world getting on the bandwagon and saying, I'm going to make UBQ successful. And this is about the consumer. And again, it's about our grandchildren. And so, I'm not a marketer. So all I can do is talk from the heart. I don't tell stories. I talk about results. I talk about things I've done, things I can do, because I'm just not that good at storytelling. That was never, my big thing in high school or in college.
Well, I think you did a pretty good job today, Albert. So thank you for that. And if you were good at storytelling, I probably wouldn't have a job here. So, so as we've talked about, really, we need people to take action to follow up on what Albert said. And so we really invite everyone here to become a UBQ hero. We have launched our UBQ Hero Product Challenge. It's live on our website. We want people to submit their products to be considered to be made with UBQ, and we'll come back and show you how it can actually be done. And it really is very, very simple to participate. Tag your friends, let everybody know. You just go to our website right on the homepage and click the button that you see there if you're ready, or the button will follow you throughout the website. So no matter where you go on the right-hand side, you can always submit a product for the UBQ Hero Product Challenge. So we ask everyone to help us spread the word. That's the only way we're going to get everyone to use UBQ in their products. We greatly appreciate everyone's time and attendance today. If you have any questions, if we didn't get your question answered, please feel free to shoot us a DM on LinkedIn, or you can email us right here at hello@UBQ Materials, and we'll gladly spend the time to take you through anything.
And just one last word, if you go into a retail store and they have a product that could use UBQ and they're not using it, tell that retailer, tell that manufacturer, hey, why aren't you doing the hero product thing? Because you could have a hero product or a UBQ product on that shelf within weeks. So, I'll leave it with that last pitch. There is things to do, and we can get them done again this afternoon. There's no reason to wait anymore. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Albert. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Bye-bye.